All right, welcome back, guys. So today we're actually going to start again on Anatomy of Story, and we're going to be working on plot today. I'm happy to be back at this. I had to take a little break because of something else I'm working on, and plot is sort of where you start to get putting things into practice. You sort of get to start to see the fruits of your labor, because the first, when you're working on character, that one can be pretty fun, but when you're doing like story world, moral argument, symbol work, all of this stuff, you kind of be like, you kind of, for lack of a better word, you sort of feel like you're just bullshitting. But once you actually have a plot, things are actually sort of happening in your story, especially with a screenplay. With a novel, you can sort of wax poetic about, character, theme, observation, train of thought even. But with a screenplay, it's all about, action, what's actually happening, and a plot is just like what's so important in this sort of medium. So I'm excited to sort of get to start showing y'all the basics here. So Truby, his opinion of plot is sort of very old school, in the sense that there's not a lot of variance. There's not a lot of, he doesn't even really provide an alternative to this. Like, this is it. This is the plot of a movie. Cut and paste, paint by number, very, not a lot of deviation. This is sort of the standard. If you're looking at your McKee, your Sid Field, your Vogler, all of your other, major dudes, you're gonna see something. You're gonna see something kind of like this. There are gonna be big marks in sort of different areas that are gonna divide these 21 events into acts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, depending on how they wanna sell you their course. But I'm actually forgetting one. There's 22. The whole thing would fall apart if you. Oh no, it's there. All right. And so I want to just make a quick preface with all of this. Use as many of these as you can. However, if you don't have some of them, you're probably still fine. As long as you have like the 7 that we talked about earlier, like the 7 basic tenets of a story, you're going to be fine. It's that sort of, I'm reading the George Saunders writing book right now, where he equates, writing to the Buddhist teaching of like, the finger in the moon. The goal is to look at the moon, and there are fingers in the world pointing, at the moon, but don't focus too much on the finger. Look at the moon. If you got something that feels good, roll with it. This is for when you don't see the moon. Okay, cool. That's basically sort of what I wanted to say to preface this. Let's get into it. He says, plot is the most underestimated of all major storytelling skills. By that, I sort of think he means that people will tell you about their movie for years, and nothing will ever happen in the movie. I was reading that article that came out in 2009 by the guy who wrote History of Violence, and it was about, it's called I Will Not Read Your Fucking Script, and I highly recommend you read it, because it's hilarious. I don't know if I agree with everything he says in it, but the frustrating thing for a lot of people is when they actually read somebody's script, it's just trash, and there's no plot. There's just stuff happening. And so what's the difference between a plot and stuff happening? Well, he says plot is any description of a sequence of events. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. But a simple sequence of events is not a good plot. It has no purpose, no designing principle. We'll get back to that. That tells you which events to tell and in which order. He describes a plot as, the sequence of events, but that it is the sequence of events that bring your character closer to their revelation, to their great change, to their great realization, which will ultimately be, the purpose of the story. And that's more in moral argument. This script is not an organic plot. This script is a 3 unities plot, in that it takes place, it's sort of got that old, classical, Socratic plot. Aristotelian plot, sorry. It takes place in a day. It takes place in one location. It's what is the third unity? It's one day, one location, and where is yeah, the problem with it is that there isn't enough plot. 3 unities plot. That's in the poetics, so you can read your Sorkin about that because he won't shut up about the poetics, despite the fact that it's, you know, hurt his movies or he's departed from it. But that's gonna bother me now. What are the 3 unities? Let's find out. So we're looking at the Oedipus Rex example. It all takes place in a day and it's all in one location, but I'm trying to 3 unities. The unity of action can be observed in a play as Sophocles discourages the use of subplots or multiple characters. Following the unity of action, the play focuses on the investigation or murder of King Laos. The drama of the tragic fall. The second unity of place is the one location. The entire action takes place in front of the palace of Oedipus. Third takes place in real time. Okay, so one main character, one place, one day. Great. I'm going to be departing from that a little bit because it's 2 main characters, but it's really one main character. Great. So that means when you do a 3 unities plot instead of a traditional Hollywood plot, this sort of creates it to be more like a play, which means you're sacrificing location and variety of time and place in order to gain you know, dialogue, in order to gain story, in order to gain a lot of other things. And that sort of depends on the type of writer you are and the type of story you're trying to tell. From here, we're going to go into the actual 22 steps of plot. And we're going to remember that we're going to try to use as many of these as possible. So the first one is self-revelation, desire, and need. Now, this is actually a bunch of different things, but it's very important that early on in your story, when you're introducing your protagonist, that you hit all these bases in a microcosm. You just sort of do something that will show as many of these as possible. I added wound or flaw because desire and need can get a little murky. Like, what's the difference between a desire and a need? There's the thing you want, but then there's the thing you actually need. And what we need is to have our wounds healed. That's like the whole thing with art aims to evoke. It brings us together so that we can, you know, experience our common humanity and learn more about ourselves, or just see ourselves, not even necessarily learn. And that communal healing is a powerful thing. So if you can hit as many of these as possible in the first scene, you're in a great spot. If you can get that the first 5 pages, you are in the top 5% of all screenwriters, in my personal opinion, in terms of all those scripts I read coverage writing. So what are we going to do for that? That's going to be coming home. Coming to the childhood summer home. So here, how is that gonna do the introduction of the plot? It's gonna introduce our protagonist. It's gonna, the self-revelation, desire and need. So her self-revelation is that her childhood is over, and she is alone. Both parents are dead. Because the mother dies, and that's sort of what has brought her home. She has to pack up the house because she's gonna sell it. Her desire, we have this, is to pack pack it up and move on. And her need, this is sort of the thing that she kind of doesn't even realize that she wants, is to feel, to be legitimate, and how are we going to sort of link that legitimacy? So she sort of starts to feel illegitimate over the course of the movie, but we need to sort of find the root cause of that, because she sort of does feel legitimate, or thinks that she does in the beginning, and then that is brought up and questioned over the course of the movie. So how do we show that? In order to get into the gated community, you have to present your name, and if he doesn't have her name, so she needs to work to get in. So that's great. That's a really good way to just sort of show, like, I belong here. Let's put that in quotes. It's my home. Well, house. Here we go. Okay, so big one. That's a big one, and you know, you can clarify stuff later. Her wound or flaw, I've sort of talked about that. It's just going to be, you know, relationship to her family, and that's what the whole movie's about. So we'll get to that more later. Ghost. The ghost. So the ghost is sort of the wound or flaw expanded. If it's a person or if it's an event. This is going to just be her entire childhood trauma. So we're going to have it be childhood trauma. Her childhood trauma, we find out, isn't the worst of it, but memories in the house. So when she enters the house, have a flurry of establishing shots and images. Great. Half of the packing is done. And the movers left. Why? Okay, so this is where we might introduce a little bit of like a mystery theme. But we'll expand on it when we actually get to that section. So, why is only half the packing done? Why did she leave? And if she was doing the packing, why didn't they remember her? So she had movers, they quit. We don't know why, but they just don't want to go back. This is going to introduce sort of the thriller horror theme. Weakness and need. We're back at weakness and need, and I just want to read sort of what he says about all that, because we kind of just did it. So I want to retouch on why he's sort of double dipping with this. Ghost is also story world, so makes sense that I would do establishing shots. The hero has one or more character flaw that are so serious they are ruining their life. Weaknesses come in two forms, psychological and moral. They are not mutually exclusive. A character can have both. All weaknesses are psychological. So we have the need. What's the weakness? And how do we see it? So her weakness, I would say, is her self-doubt and her she's not rooted. That's sort of and how does that manifest itself? So self-doubt and unsure of her legitimacy. How does that sort of affect us in our everyday life? We can have all kinds of things happen. Her work could judge her fear. Her relationships outside of work, friends, significant other, all of these things are brought into question and tied to grief. You know, when we lose our parents, whether you have a strong relationship with your parents or not, you know, you're sort of, when you find out they die, it affects you because of a lot of things. Regardless of your relationship, they are a huge indicator of your history and who you are. Parents were, you know, that's why people have written about them forever. They affect us regardless of whether they're there or not. And sometimes them not being there is just as effective as them doing stuff. Inciting event. Okay. Inciting event here. Oh, okay. That's going to be Dawn's arrival. Which is going to be the arrival of a long-lost half-sister who broke in, question mark. So we'll look at that later. I think I'm gonna have her break into the house. And we'll see why, and if she's the reason that the movers thought the house was haunted or something like that. Right. Desire. Her desire is to... I think we can sort of have two desires here for Paula, because it's still a little vague in my mind, and I want to sort of hammer it down. So it's to pack. But she has work she needs to do this weekend. She has to finish designing a building. But she's blocked. That can also sort of go into her weakness and need. Let's go ahead and separate these for the sake of me reading them later. Great. Okay. So, ally or allies? That's gonna be... See, this one, they're alone. So, if we do anything, you know, we're gonna... There's also something I need to put in back here. Which this will sort of go into the scene weave, but I think we need to go ahead and just remember voicemails from either lawyer and work and boyfriend. That might be a lot, you know, having a shit ton of voicemails for an exposition dump is kind of a weak move, so we'll sort of clarify what all those are later, but those are just things I need to keep in mind, because the next thing we're going to do, which is going to be the next video, is once we're done with this, you know, we're going to divide all of this up into scenes, which will continue to emphasize the point of each of these 22 steps, and that'll actually become the outline of the script scene by scene, because as you can see, these are just sort of major and minor-ish, but mostly major events that happen and their order. But when you actually do a scene weave, we're going to be going to like almost shot by shot, just a little vaguer than shot by shot. Like it's going to be dividing, this scene goes into this scene, this happens, then this happens, and then we're going to actually write the scenes. So, which will be the video after that. So, desire, to pack, she's blocked. Okay, ally or allies. This is going to be the lawyer, Dawn, because she sort of has an enigmatic connection to all this. We don't know if she's an ally or an opponent. And then her father. Them just being aware this is going to be a sort of second big event, which is going to be the will. Is there a will? The mother's will, which is actually the father's will. The mother's will is actually the father's will. Opponent or mystery. This is sort of, we're going to get into, you know, Dawn, ghost, not the ghost like number 2, not this ghost, like not her ghost, in terms of like her trauma, but there may be a ghost in the house. ally opponent. Again, we're going to get into her father and Dawn, because we sort of don't know if he's an opponent or not either. Change desire or motive. First revelation. So this is whenever her desire changes. This is when she abandons the project that she has to do over the weekend because she has to find the will. They have to find their father's will. Boom. The voicemail from the lawyer. Great. He gives them a clue. From beyond the grave. Also, it's a race. Whoever finds it first gets the money, the inheritance, the house, everything. So the plan is to, complete the task first in sort of a, they find the will, they have to sort of decode the will, then there's a second part to the will, and then there's the who wins. So they're going to find the will pretty quickly after it's a race. They both find it. The plan: decode the password to the disk. To view the video. Great. Dawn figures it out and found it first. And won't share it with Paula. Drive. I'm not really sure what he means by drive. So yeah, that's number 12. Let's do a quick read of that. Yeah, we can also let's go back to plan real quick, because that's really not great. The plan is the set of guidelines that and strategies the hero will use to overcome the opponent and reach the goal. See, this is sort of where they do, he describes it as like the training montage, which like we're not going to have. Not every movie needs a training montage. I don't even know why it's I don't even know why it's in here listed as like a mandatory one, because so many movies don't have them anymore. Opponent's plan and main counterattack. Okay, yeah, so this is when we're going to have to go back and put a couple of other things in the that'll go more in depth in the scene weave, but like so yeah, we'll just put an NA here for now. So the main counterattack is that Dawn won't go to her childhood bedroom in the basement. Great. And that's sort of when we're gonna start to see some more ghostly hallways and shadows, etc. Okay. She's like, I'm gonna do this now. We're not moving this over to tomorrow. Attacked by ally. This is sort of where we are gonna get to them hashing out the past. Because this is sort of where Dawn acts as an ally, because when, you have this sort of sibling rivalry, they're your opponents, but they also are like, they want you to be better, they want to challenge you. I watched My Dinner with Andre last night, and it's sort of similar to that in the sense that, they're opponents in the term that they're arguing about, their beliefs, but they're also allies because they're trying to have sort of a shared discussion to help propel them to the truth in sort of a it's sort of a more like Hegelian kind of Kantian context, where by discussing these ideas we will eventually arrive at the truth together. Whether or not that actually happens in real life sort of remains to be seen. But it works in terms of, definitely works in art. So them hashing out the past, making their case for each other, for their own legitimacy, attacking, then validating each other. We learn more about Dawn leaving 10 years ago. Apparent defeat. This is where we sort of skip a little bit. There will be a couple of scenes in between here. Dawn decodes it and gets to the last challenge first. So we sort of have to think here how we're gonna do this. So the last challenge first. Paula loses the will. So I'm not sure if she's gonna lose here or if she's gonna lose a little bit later, but okay. But actually it might work. It might work right here because there's still plenty of movie left. To undermine Dawn and get her to give her the will. This is sort of a reversal. Paula had the power and thought she knew her father and her place in the family, but maybe Dawn was more perceptive. Audience revelation. Dawn's abuse at the hands of Paula's mother. Third revelation or decision. Fight. Okay, so there's gonna be an actual fight there, but we can't skip the third revelation or decision. Okay. Maybe their father didn't. Or maybe their father loved Dawn more, or maybe neither. He's just pitting them against each other in his capitalist way. Not to be super political, but he's a business mogul. We sort of talked about that in character. He will chop down forests. He's Paul Bunyan. He just crushed stuff for this hunger for growth. Okay. So Gauntlet and Visit to Death, Battle, Actual Fight, Visit to Death. This the prelude to the fight the verbal portion. Is it to death? The ghost appears. It is their mother. And how I want to represent that visually, I don't think it's going to be a character. It's just going to be a shadow on Paula's face. So that, like, I just don't want to have to cast a whole nother person, and I don't want there to be, like, this actual, like, ghoulish person in the house. Like, that's not really this kind of story. Battle, actual fight, self-revelation, which is they were both manipulated by their parents who hated each other and didn't know how to love them. You know, which tends to sort of be what happens to a lot of people. And then we're down here, the moral decision to share the will, which, you know, feels kind of like so easy, but like it may not be easy for them. And that's just sort of something like to keep in mind here. Is this a cop-out? Only if you don't show how much they hate each other. You know, like it's gotta truly be like they really like wish death on the other in the beginning or middle. Great. And then the new equilibrium is Paula understands her place in the family and that these definitions are useless, and we define ourselves in the world. And she finishes her building, which I actually need to get those builds from that architect because he's like a genius. So just before I forget, I need to remember to, because we have a friend who's the guy whose house we're using. His architect is incredible, and he's got a bunch of other really cool, like just blueprints that we're gonna see if we can use, because we need her to be a genius as well. And if we can use some modern award-winning designs, that would be sick. And then, you know, twist with Dawn. Great. So there may be a ton of other twists with Dawn, but we don't know yet. We'll see. I think that's okay. Cool. So yeah, this is the plot. It feels like a solid start. I think that, you know, obviously, like, it's never a good sign when your first few, when numbers 1 through 4 have a whole lot more going on than the last 18. But, you know, 15's got some stuff in there. You know, 12 is useless. 13 has some stuff in there. Organizing all of this is going to be more about the scene weave. This is sort of the Jordan Peele filling up the sandbox with sand. This is sand. And we're going to make a sand castle next week. I think that this sort of works as a list of events, but I think that in terms of narrative drive and it driving Paula to this revelation, I think some honing could be done, but it's a solid start. Like, we're definitely gonna have to do more. And you know, this is sort of the plot, but I haven't, like, for example, right here, I haven't really written like an event for the scene. So that kind of stuff will need to be developed. You know, Ally or Allies is a scene. It's not a character. You know what I mean? This is plot. These are events. So, you know, as I said in the beginning, and Truby says in the book, you know, 3 Unity's plots have the problem of there not being enough plot. And that's just sort of a stylistic thing that you either need to work harder to overcome or just embrace. And I'm sort of torn in between those decisions right now, so I'm going to have to sort of print this off and, you know, mark it up and fix the typos. And just sort of be like, okay, what kind of movie is this? Because it's still a little jumbled. I like that it sort of has this idea of, you know, sisters coming together and being, you know, haunted by the past, and like really enjoying the thriller tropes in a story that's not actually a thriller, that is a sort of kitchen sink drama. Because I haven't seen a lot of that. So yeah, I think that there's not enough plot, but that's a 3 Unity's problem and a me problem, and I'm gonna have to inject more plot into it. But I think that when I have the scene weave, you have to outline every scene and figure out what the event of every scene is, and from there we can see if we truly don't have enough plot for how long the movie is. Because, you know, having a main event in every scene is what's really important. So I think that that's actually sort of going to be it for this video. I'm not really sure how long it was, but, you know, sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't. I think that, yeah, this is a good start. I'm going to have to revise it. I'll probably do that on my own time, and I'll go over it with y'all next week whenever we do the scene weave. But all in all, that's how you outline a plot, especially a 3 Unity's plot. Yeah. And I'll go into detail with what these revelations are and stuff in the scene weave next week. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all next time, and right on.